Good evening, sports fans from all around the globe. I'm back. I've been on a few shows today, but when we have an opportunity to talk some baseball, we clear the desk. And what myself and my co host, my partner in crime, Mr. Scott Beam 'em Up Webb, are going to try to do is start talking some baseball on a consistent basis. Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock, and then on Thursday nights around 9 p.m. Talk a little WBC, a little spring training, cactus, grapefruit, pitchers and catchers, injuries, divisions, futures, and we want you to play along. Come join us here. Turn on your notifications. You can DM any questions that you want. You can go to my Twitter feed at EC Sports Invest. You can go to Scott's at Webby20MLB and ask away. And we're here to educate with a little entertainment. We always say we save the entertainment for that four-letter word and Fox and all those other people on social media. So without further ado, let's bring him in from the Palm Tree State himself, the one and only, Mr. Scott E. Webb. Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir. It is Tuesday, getting closer to both the WBC and some actual action, right? Game time action is going to be coming up here pretty soon. We're going to be sitting here going, damn, man, your baseball's going. We need to see some live action. So they're going to be playing here pretty soon. So it'll be fun, man. I'm all excited about this WBC. I'm excited about this season for baseball. I think the rule changes. I think the schedule changes. I think all of that stuff is going to be aesthetically pleasing to most people watching the sport. For old timers like me and you, we're probably going to have to get used to it a little bit, but you know what? I mean, that's the way it is, right? I mean, look at the NFL. They change shit all the time and still king of the crop. So, maybe this will help Major League Baseball and put them back where they belong. As far as I'm concerned, it's football and then baseball for most people. And obviously for me, it's baseball, then football. But I mean, it is what it is. So, just keep going.
You talk about the rule changes. I have some good personal friends in high stakes fantasy baseball. We're supposed to head out March 20th for that weekend it used to be the Bellagio. I think it still is, where they'll be drafting. You talk about the rule changes. The stolen bases now are back in play when pitchers now can only go over to first base twice. The time clock for these pitchers, the shift, no shift, I should actually say, all these put into play as you're in the off season doing your numbers and stuff. How does that affect your actual numbers? I mean, we haven't seen the game, so we don't know, is it these umps are going to be on these rules the first week of play and then they forget about them? How does this affect all your numbers?
Well, I think that's an interesting question because I think that it's hard to fathom what that's going to mean because you can't go to it. The only thing you can look at is what happened in the minor leagues. All of these things have been tested. So it's not like they're going to bring to the Major League Baseball something that hasn't been tested in a bunch of different other divisions, leagues around, Major League Baseball. It's going to be one of these things where I think these are going to be blown up all preseason long as super major, rule changes. But looking at what's happened in the minor leagues, most of this stuff, other than time of play, has, the reduction of that has been minor changes, not major changes. But, these are major league players and these are different athletes that are going to get to throw out their skill sets on these rules and see what happens. I'm fully expecting more stolen bases. That's number one. And I even heard someone and say, and I don't necessarily trust this person, but he's a former Major League Baseball player, that he's talking about Ronald Acuna and thinks Ronald Acuna could possibly be a 40-40 kind of guy, or maybe even a 50-50 kind of guy. We're talking about stolen bases getting up there now. I think the stolen base leader, if I'm not wrong, last year was in the neighborhood of like close to 50. I'd have to double check. I can check that real fast, but I think it was like 50 stolen bases. Obviously not very many. So I think you're going to have quite a few people at least in that 30, 40, 50 kind of range this year, because you have throw over rule limits, you have bigger bases, and your reduction of the shift puts the ball in play, which also then generally is going to maybe do some hit and runs and some things like that, where stolen bases that way.
Shout out to Mr. Sean Childs, a Hall of Fame NFBC fantasy player. Was writing for Sports Illustrated. He's been doing fantasy baseball and NFL writing forever. The Mirage. It's not a mirage. And there goes Sean saying Ricky Henderson record goes down in 2023. I still remember that, Sean. I remember that. I was in Hyannis sitting in my room. He was standing on second, just needed to go to third. And sure enough, he went to third. So Scott, the question is, Trey Turner, Sean's binky from way back, who now his new binky is Bobby Witt Jr. Sean, I'm only messing with you. But you threw over the twice. You threw over the first base twice. You can't throw over again. So that lead just gets big and bigger. I assume you can step off. But I mean, the pitches, what are they going to do then? Pitch out? I mean, are you automatically going to be going on the next pitch after they threw over twice?
Well, there's more than one way to skin a cat when you're trying to hold a guy on first base. By the way, looking it up, last year the stolen base leader had 35. I bet it doubles. I bet it doubles. Jorge Mateo from the Baltimore Orioles had 35, and Cedric Mullins had 34 from the same team.
Wow.
So I think you're going to get more than double that. I think Ricky Henderson is safe, those numbers, but I think you're going to see numbers go up and go up a lot. People are going to run. Now, here's what I will tell you. So Major League Baseball pitchers can vary the times to the plate. So they can take longer time to the plate. They can quick throw to the plate. And I think you're going to see a lot of that, a lot of that. So as opposed to throwing over to hold the runner close, I think you're going to see them do a lot of, variation in terms of how they get the ball to the plate. And if they got a guy on first base that's a pretty big base runner, I think you're going to see a lot of that. So I think that you're going to see a lot of variance in that particular style of holding guys on base. You'll see some guys probably with a much reduced leg kick, when a guy's on first and stuff like that. But that's the way it used to be, man. It used to be that way in the olden days. I mean, guys would hold people on base, but at the same time that they would hold them on base, they would vary their leg and do different things to try to keep that runner from running. So I think that's what you're going to see. And there's nothing that says that the catcher can't throw behind the runner either. So I think you're going to see a lot of different ways of trying to hold the guy on. And I think you'll see catchers be a bigger play too.
Shout out to George. Says, good to have you guys back. Good luck this season. He says Tatis gets 10 off of Syndergaard in 4 games. That's Sean again. So,
we'll have to wait. How good that guy is, man. People forget how good Tatis is. I mean, I know he did his mistake and he did all the other stuff and all of that, but I think that he's a guy that is an MVP. I mean, he's an MVP player, period. And he's as good as baseball has to offer. The problem is that he's got to stay on the field and he's going to not have, silly stuff going on. And, his time frame is April 20th. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him get 10 stolen bases off of Syndergaard. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But the news on Syndergaard, that we talked off camera behind the scenes a little bit about guys going to certain teams, and then all of a sudden they become all kinds of things. Syndergaard's ramping back up again, dude. He's I wouldn't be surprised if he's because all I talked about last year was how his velocity was down. It's not down anymore. So Syndergaard is more Thor than he is Syndergaard anymore. Just food for thought, all these guys going out to the Dodgers and they become Sandy Koufax or something.
They're coming. I told you, Alex Reyes, same thing. You watch, they drink the water. Here comes Thor again. JD Martinez is going to win the Triple Crown. Sean said, yeah, Syndergaard allowed 30 for 33 last year. George wants to know, are we looking at higher game totals this season? How's Vegas going to take in the shift, the pitching change, the time clock, the two throws over there? Do you think they'd start high and work down? Or do you think they'd be more going off of last year's numbers and then get ready to rise up those totals?
Well, I think we have to look at it from a perspective of what was the purpose of the rules. Well, the purpose of the rules was to generate more offense. So theoretically, I think at the beginning, you're going to start that's all people are going to talk about. So I think that you're going to sit there and you're going to see how these things, maybe if it was a 7, maybe they're going to open it at 7.5 or 8 now. My opinion would be is that they're going to open it high, which keep in mind the weather at the beginning of the season plays a vital role in totals. It's cold in a lot of cities. It's not necessarily cold where I live, but it's cold in a lot of cities. So as it's cold, the ball doesn't carry and it doesn't go well. So, and that means the pitchers have advantages. So I think that when you're looking at those things, think unders early, especially when everybody's sitting here running around, going, hey, they're going to score more and they're going to have, there's no shifts and there's no this and there's no all this other stuff. But I think what will end up happening is baseball is baseball. And we're going to see players make more athletic plays and they're going to do more athletic things. But Jeff, I just fall back on the same thing that I'm sitting here and I preach about all the time. The pitching that we see in Major League Baseball today is the best it's ever been. There is no time ever that baseball has had this kind of pitching. It's elite pitching. I made the comment on one of the shows. I don't remember if it was the last time we talked or whatever, but the question is, do you know how many pitches are thrown over 100 miles an hour in Major League Baseball last year? The answer to the question is over 3,000. 3,000 by 160 plus different pitchers. Nobody can do that, man. It's just not nobody does that. And then I was watching a clip, and then you got Shohei Ohtani out there who hits, 30 home runs or more, 40 home runs. And then he's throwing 100 miles an hour on the mound. I'm like, what is the matter with these people? They're not people. They're just anomalies out there just doing crazy stuff. And then, damn Judge goes out and hits 60 home runs off these guys. It just blows my mind. It blows me away sometimes at what's going on in Major League Baseball.
I don't know. Sean wanted to know, does 3 miles an hour of velocity offset 4 fewer inches on the base paths?
Mathematically, I would have to try to do that calculation, but the answer to the question is, the higher the velocity, the less seconds, minuscule seconds it takes to get to the catcher. Then it all depends on the catcher pop time and get to second base. It's all timing. That's all it is. It's a matter of does the ball get to home plate in a matter of certain amount of time and the pop time of the catcher, because he's going to be out or he's going to be safe. If the runner can run to second base at, let's just say it's 25 miles an hour or 30 miles an hour, whatever that speed is that they can run at, and he can go from X to X in that amount of seconds. This is how long it takes for the pitcher to get to the home plate and back. And that's why you see first base coaches over there with stopwatches. They are calculating how long does it take to get to home plate. And if they can, so in his question, does 3 miles per hour of velocity offset 4 fewer inches? The answer is 3 miles an hour is much better than 4 inches. Is that kind of like 1 knee equals 2 feet?
Oh, football has left the building. Thank you. Football has left the building. Talking rules. We talked AL East, NL East last year. You talked World Baseball Classic. it's been a week since we've been on the air. Some injuries. Let's go to injuries. I talked off the record with you about the Red Sox and their new young Pedro Jr., who Pedro wants to take under his wing. Bello, already with a little soreness. You talk about DeGrom with a little soreness. Any other injuries catching your eye that we should hear about right now on February 21st?
Well, some of the things that you're going to hear shouldn't bother you at all. Some of the things should. So the DeGrom thing doesn't bother me because he's a veteran kind of pitcher. He goes out. Okay, I got a soreness in the lat. It's not a strain. It's not a pull. It's not anything major. They didn't blow it up to be anything major. But like I've got a folder on all this stuff for every single team. So let me go hit you with this one. This is the Seattle Mariners, right? So in the research of what I'm trying to find on the Seattle Mariners, there's a lot of stuff. So first thing that pops up, Scott Service expects Julio Rodriguez to steal anywhere from 25 to 30 bases. There you go. So as I'm looking down through here, though, there's a big one that says George Kirby and Logan Gilbert. Now, those are two pitchers for Seattle that are vitally important because they're the young guys that offset the older guys in that rotation. And so George Kirby and Logan Gilbert will have their innings limited in spring training and to start the season. When everyone else is ramping up to their 2 and 3 inning outings, we are going to have Logan and George moving a little slow and hold the innings back in the spring to preserve them to the back end. So we talk about a lot of times inning restrictions, and these are some of those things that you got to be prepared for. Now, that's not an injury kind of thing, but that is something that when you're not prepared to have an understanding of how they're going to use someone, you might be thinking, okay, well, this is his first start. He's going to go out there. He's going to throw 7 innings. If he can get through it, it'd be good. They're going to pull him out pretty quick. So you got to know some of that kind of stuff. So when it comes to injuries and things, it's really important to twofold. One, you got to kind of have an understanding of what guys are doing when they're coming back, whether they're being successful coming back or not. Like Sterling Marte for the Mets. He feels like he's doing much better, but they're going to still be really cautious and they're still going to hold him back and they're not going to let him do a whole lot. Guys like Byron Buxton, he's a guy that's 100% healthy right now, but they're not going to let him play. He'll go out there and hurt himself because he's running around doing stuff he ain't supposed to. Well, he's doing. He's just a bad athlete. So a lot of this stuff is designed to keep the player healthy for the length of time that they need. So when you're reading about some of these injuries, you gotta know some of them are rebounding from where they were. But I will tell you that what I've heard and seen on some of these guys, your guys like Syndergaard, and the reason I bring him up is because this is his second season now coming off Tommy John and some of the different things that he was going through. And that's the time when you do better. It's their second year, not your first year. So I would expect him to be more Thorish than he was last season. But guys like Shane Bieber, guys like Corey Kluber, they're past their prime. So those are guys that I think are going to drop off even more. It's just a matter of can they pitch. And we learned last year, Shane Bieber went from 96, 97 miles an hour to like 92. And normally you get crushed when you do that. But he didn't get crushed. He actually pitched a great season. I would say he's not like a dominant guy on the mound anymore where he's out there striking out 10, 12 guys. But he had a great season, and that's a catalyst for Cleveland, which, by the way, if we start talking about teams, I think that when I'm kind of breaking these divisions down, that's one of the ones where I think is wide open. I mean, I get it. Cleveland was what Cleveland was last year, and I'm not going to downtrod Cleveland. But I think people are sleeping on the Twins, man. I think they're sleeping on them.
Sean said a crazy stat in 2016 when Syndergaard was Syndergaard, obviously, averaged 98.8 miles per hour on his fastball, 94.5 in 2022. Base runners only stole 48 bases and 57 tries off of him over 31 games.
Well, I mean, it's when you can get the ball to the plate, you can get it to second faster than some other guys. And the truth of the matter is those milliseconds matter because that's what they're counting. I mean, they're counting all that stuff. But so I'm really looking forward to seeing what Ronald Acuna does because I think he's going to be a guy that bounces back from what he was going through last year. I think Juan Soto is going to be a better player than he was last year. He's going to be back to the kind of normal Juan Soto that you're used to seeing. And then you got Fernando Tatis Jr. playing. I mean, the National League is just full of these kind of players. They're just star-studded when it comes to these kind of guys. And I think it's just a matter of time when these guys kind of take over. I would certainly like to see Julio Rodriguez and some of these other guys in the American League kind of drive up that way. But I mean, listen, man, you got the National League East. You just look at the players that are in the National League East. Jesus, look at the players that are on the damn Padres, and you start looking at some of these guys, and you start matching up lineups, and you go, holy cow, there's no way you can compete against some of this stuff.
No, and we remember what we saw last year, an Astro team defeat the Miracle Phillies. The Phillies had a great run, and I always talked about the Phillies back end. They come up with two great starters to start with Nola and Wheeler, and then we were playing team totals. We were playing first fives. I wanted no part of that back end, but circle back the wagon. So what you talk about, guys, flamethrowers, throw hard and harder. Their back end, especially as the playoffs progressed, got stronger because they were just coming in to get 3, 4, 5 outs. Here, come get me 2 outs so we can go to the next guy and so forth. So you talk about these star-studded lineups, and then you talk about the flamethrowers. I mean,
here's a good one for you. Here's a good one for you. And I'll be honest, I wouldn't have never picked this, but looking at numbers and looking at data and kind of how it breaks out, the Atlanta Braves have one of the best bullpens in baseball. And I would never have. I mean, I get it; they're good, but you don't really recognize the names that come out of that bullpen. But let me hit you with this, Jeff. So here's 8 players that come out of the bullpen for the Atlanta Braves. So you got AJ Minter, Raisel Iglesias, Colin McHugh, Joe Jimenez, Lucas Ludic. Remember him? He pitched for the Yankees last year. Kirby Yates is going to be back. Then you got Dylan Lee and you got Dennis Santana. Dennis Santana is a former, I think he was a Twin or somebody like that. Here's the case per 9. Okay, case per 9. 10.98, 10.51, 11.01, 9.55, 9.78, 9.52, 9.02. Jeff, they just come out there and throw gas. That's all they do. They come out there and they throw gas. Okay, so you sit there and go, okay, well, that's Atlanta. What does the Mets look like? So here's the Mets. So you got Edwin Diaz, Adam Ottavino, David Robertson, Brooks Raley, Drew Smith, John Curtis, Elsinore Hernandez, who they got from Miami, Jeff Brigham, who they got from the Korean League, Bryce Montez Alca, and David Peterson. Here you go. A 13.94 case per 9. You can guarantee who that is. That's Mr. Edwin Diaz. 13.94, 10.09, 10.43, 9.45, 9.57, 9.81, 10.08, 11.02, 10.40. Who hits these guys? I mean, seriously. And then you go, okay, well, what about Cleveland, right? Because they got Class A and those guys. 10.20, 11.61, 10.36, 10.15, 10.65, 9.91, 9.29, 9.06. Jeff, but when you look at a bad one, when you look at somebody that's not very good, then you sit there and you go, I get it now. I get it now. Because you got a starter out there who wasn't very good to begin with, but maybe he holds the team to 3, and then you put in this bullpen, and the bullpen gets knocked around, and they allowed 5 more, so they scored 8. You put in these other bullpens, and they might give up 1. They might give up 2. The guy gets lucky and hits a home run or something. That happens all the time. But the point being is this theory, and remember back when we used to play and we used to, all it was get him on, get him over, get him in, get him on, get it over, get him in. You don't even hit the ball anymore. It's hard enough just to put bat on ball. So trying to string things together is very, very hard. And the starting pitchers are as good as they've ever been. And the bullpens are much, much better than they've been and deeper. Some of these bullpens, Jeff, are just like, oh, my God, I can't believe it. And you go out there, and that's why when you go to the playoff games and you see these guys come out of the bullpen, you sit there and you go, oh, my God, this is the most fantastic thing I've ever seen. Look at these guys coming out here. They look like, I don't know, guys with bazookas on their shoulder, and then all of a sudden they throw the ball in there, and then the hitter's going, I can't see it. I don't know. I'm just going to swing. But that's I make light of it. But the truth of the matter is, it is very difficult these days to beat the good teams because the good teams can pitch. But what you find out a lot of times is that the differentiator is offense, because not everybody can hit. Most teams at least have somebody that can at least pitch a little bit. So pitching sort of offsets that a little. But I broke it down to like 8 different tiers. And I was like, holy shit, 8 tiers? What the hell does that mean? So when I looked at it, there are three teams that are above everybody else, just above everybody else in offense. And you can probably pick them out. It's Houston, Toronto, and San Diego. Those 3 teams are better than any of the other teams. They just are. So they're on a tier all by themselves. That's tier A, number 1, elite, whatever you want to call it. But then there's a next level that's still above average and probably a little bit better than above average. They're pretty damn good, right? So that tier is the Dodgers, the Mets, the Angels, St. Louis, and Atlanta. Now, remember I said the Angels just for a second. Just remember I said that for a second. You don't have to remember forever, just for a second. So then you get to the just above average teams, and that's your Tampa Bay, the Yankees, Minnesota, Seattle. The Yankees are just a little bit above average. I just went through about 10 teams that are better than the Yankees on offense. That's kind of an amazing thing to say. The reason is Aaron Judge is half of the Yankees offense. That's really what it is. If Aaron Judge doesn't do what Aaron Judge does, and he doesn't play like an MVP, the Yankees, they're not going to do much on offense. But they can pitch, man. They got the starting rotation that's better than anybody. Anyway, so I have those teams lined up like that, but then you have the Detroit, Oakland, Colorado, Washington group. That's a tier. They're way below average. They're just horrible. But there's one tier all by itself, Jeff. One, the Cincinnati Reds. They are so bad. They have their own tier all by themselves. They're that bad. They're just. So the reason I bring up the Angels is because they are a top tier offense. They're not in the elite offense, but they're in the next level offense, right? They're that good on offense. And I shouldn't say it that way. They can be that good. They need health to go their way, and they can be that good. But they can pitch now. They're starting pitchers. They're not like the elite guys, but they're in the top 10 of all of baseball. So if they're in the top 10 of all of baseball in the starting pitching, and they're also in the elite offenses, this is a great first 5 team. They're a great first 5 team. And I would also even argue that they could compete at the level of, say, the Seattle Mariners for that. For I don't think they can't knock off Houston. Houston's in their own little area, but can they play with teams like Seattle? Can they be better than Texas with their improved team? They can. This a team that could make the playoffs that didn't make the playoffs last year.
I was listening to MLB baseball, and they were talking about a gentleman that they have high hopes to win the Cy Young. And I think his strikeout rate was in the 11s. And I was wondering what your numbers say and your thoughts. I don't even have his odds. Mr. Dylan Cease.
Dylan Cease, I love that kid. We talked about him last year as being, a guy that I like. And he had a great season last year. I mean, Dylan Cease was the White Sox pitchers last year. I mean, I don't know how else to say. He was the White Sox pitching. If I pull him up and show you what he did for I want the White Sox. Where's the White Sox? The White Sox, Chicago White Sox. They're there. So if I pull him up and I say he pitched 32 games, 184 innings, 11.10. 11.10 was his strikeouts per nine. So where he ran into trouble last year, and he has this thing where he goes into games and they can't hit him, which I get that. You got good stuff like that. His average fastball is 96.9 miles an hour, by the way. Jesus Christ. That's a starting pitcher, for God's sakes, not a relief pitcher. So, but he has also almost 4 walks per 9 innings. So think about the 3 true outcomes. If you're not in good in strikeouts, good in walks, and not allowing home runs, he didn't allow many home runs. What was his home runs were? Well, he had 16, which is not terrible in 32 starts. So, that's one every other game. So that's not terrible. But this is a guy, 184 innings, 227 strikeouts. But his walks per 9 innings, I think it was 3.58, 3.78, whatever it was. That's too high. And some of these guys need to work on staying in the games. If you want to be that guy, you got to throw 200 innings. He threw 184. Now, can he get to that? He probably can. Let me see what his numbers look like. So 2022, he threw 184 innings, 2021, 165. So he made a big jump from 2020. 2020 he threw 58 innings, and then he went to 165. That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot. And then he jumped to 184. And his projection from Steamer is 188 this year. He needs to get to 200 innings. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. He needs to get 200 innings. How do you get to 200 innings? Don't walk all these pitchers. And the reason I say that you don't want to walk all these pitchers is because your pitch counts come up and you get taken out of the damn game. I mean, it is what it is. I like the idea of Cy Ohtani, by the way. I like that idea. I see that that's a good comment. And what do you say? If he knocked off 15 walks, his strikeout minimum of 30 or more batters. Yeah, I've been playing the lottery for years, and I can't wait. So listen, the pitch count matters. So especially in today's game, if you get to a point where your pitch counts are too high and you're in 5 innings, you can't get to 200 innings. You just can't. So you got to figure out how to pitch some, and I think that would be his next progression, Jeff. If he could figure out how, when he doesn't have his best stuff, to still throw 7 innings and get a win like Verlander does, or some of these other guys that have been around a while, I think that's where you can see Cease become, that next level player.
We've been going about 36 minutes already tonight. I think where I'd like to go, Scotty, now, we got a month before the season starts. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. There's a lot of things that can go right. You don't want to jump to conclusions because of a couple bad starts in spring training, or jump to conclusions that, Sean Childs is, started the Grapefruit League, 9 for 11 with 4 homers, and we're moving him up. How does
Hey, let me ask
someone?
you a question. Just because you said that, who was the home run leader last spring training? Do you know?
I should know this too. I should. Give me his initials.
I don't know. That's why I was asking you.
I don't know.
I'm gonna look it up, but I asked that question for a specific reason. Why is it not on there? Regular season. So there it is. That's what I was looking for. So the home run leader in spring training last year. The reason I ask you that question, Jeff, is because it doesn't matter. That's why I asked the question. Bryce Harper with 8 is the correct answer. The next one, Kyle Higashioka from the Yankees had 7. There you go. That's why it doesn't matter. Rafael Devers, Diego Castillo for Pittsburgh, and Mikey Maniac had 6 for the Phillies. Guys that don't play. So the reason I brought it up was just, and you were talking about it, is because the preseason stats don't really matter. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No. My question is for people that are trying to put together maybe a portfolio before the first pitch, whether it's maybe some under overs, maybe it's some potential. Me and Sean, when we were in Vegas last year, we had some good tickets on the MLB season wins. We had Manoah, we had Gilbert, we had a great start, and these guys just ran out of gas. And Cy Verlander, and actually I think it was someone off the pace, actually the Dodger guy ended up winning the most wins last year. So how do you educate the people that are listening today? We got a month to go. Where do they go other than watching and listening and going to the websites? Anything in particular they should be honing their skills in as we get 29 days or 28 days from first pitch?
Well, I think if you're going to make good wagers on season wins, you got to figure out, where do the wins come from? So they don't come from when Max Scherzer pitches and he has to face, he has to face Wheeler from the Phillies, right? Because theoretically that's a toss up. It could be anybody, and everybody's got somebody that's pretty good nowadays. So your aces, they're going to get their wins, but they're also going to get taken out in games where the game's 1-0. They can lose the game if they were ahead, or they're going to be behind 2-1 or something. They're going to be taken out. Where you want to look for some wins that you might not really look to look at. You want to look at starter number 2, starter number 3. Is in particularly if you can get starter number 3, who has a certain dominant edge, right? So when he goes out there, he's going to be the best number 3 there is, and he's going to be facing all these other number 3s that ain't no good, or I shouldn't say not good. They're just not as good as he is, right? Because he's like borderline all-star guy, borderline ace kind of pitcher guy, but because he pitches behind, I don't know, say he pitches, say for the Rays, right? You got Glasnow who goes out there, and you got the lefty McClanahan who goes out there. So those guys are going to match up to anybody. Well, what about Rasmussen? Rasmussen's our number 3. Rasmussen's going to go out there and get some wins because he's going to be facing some guys that aren't going to be as good as he is. So you're going to get some wins that way. That maybe so pitching slot is important, right? So last year we kind of knew what was going on in Toronto, and we knew Manoah was good, but Manoah was pitching in the 3rd slot to start the season because you had Gausman and Barrios and then Manoah. So you can get Manoah to pitch in the third slot. That's the guy you want to bet on. So those are where you try to find those things, and that stuff sort of starts to shake out as you see how they start putting their rotation together. So you want to look at stuff like that, and or some of these young kids that come up that can be in that spot too. They can be in a 3 spot or a 4 spot, and they have dynamic stuff. And maybe like Grayson Rodriguez, for example, he's not going to pitch enough. He's not going to get enough innings. He's not going to do enough to get a wins title. But he could be one of these guys that, because of his stuff, which is ace stuff. I mean, he throws 96, 97 miles an hour on average fastball, touching triple digits. The kid could be one of those guys that's going to be a dominant over the opponent he's facing, because the matchup's going to be good for him. So he's going to get wins just because the person that he's pitching against isn't as good as he is. But he's not going to pitch enough. So you want a guy that's going to have that balance. And Manoah is a perfect example of that from last year. Now he just ran out of gas. But the point being is that those are the kind of guys. I think didn't you do Logan Gilbert too?
Yeah.
I mean, Logan Gilbert's kind of that same kind of talent. Those are the guys you're looking for, that are going to come in. They're going to be that third or fourth guy. They're going to be better than the other guys. They play on a good team. They can get some wins, and then you can go from there.
So do you target again? We had Gilbert, we had Manoah. I had the wrong guy on the Mets. I had the wrong guy on the Marlins. So do you look for the elite teams, or do you can you cherry pick the third starter for the Marlins? Can you cherry pick the third starter for the Cardinals?
Well, remember, they got to win. So they got to be on teams that are going to at least be playoff contenders, right? So here's food for thought. So I talked about Minnesota for just a second earlier, and I said, hey, this is a team that I think can compete because people are sleeping on them. So their number one starter this year is Pablo Lopez. They got him from Miami. He's going to be good, right? So he's going to throw well. Then Sonny Gray. Sonny Gray's pretty damn good too. So then you got two guys that I think you could probably do fairly well with. So what about Joe Ryan? Joe Ryan's not bad, but you know who I like? Tyler Mahle. Tyler Mahle's all he's been doing has been in driveline ever since he left Minnesota. All he's done is gone over there. His velocity's up. His breaking ball is great. He feels better than he's ever felt before, and he's like chomping at the bit to get on the mound. I think, and if you remember when he pitched for Cincinnati, he was the number 2 in Cincinnati. He was not the number 1 because they had the whatever the guy, crazy ass son of a bitch guy from that pitched for the Dodgers. They had that guy, so he was behind him, but he was matched up to other teams' great pitchers. Now he's not gonna be. I think he's going to get a lot of wins, and I think he's going to pitch very well. And I think Minnesota's a team. So think about this. You know who their number 5 is? It's Kenta Maeda coming back. And his report is that okay, he's pitching pretty well. He's healthy, and he's got to get his splitter working because his splitter wasn't moving the last time he threw it. So I think that's a pretty good pitching staff. When you start to think about it, and their bullpen's not terrible, and this is a team that has Byron Buxton and Carlos Correa on it. You telling me that they can't compete with the Cleveland team? I think they can. Cleveland, I would say that division was the weakest division champion of all of them. That you can't tell me that St. Louis was worse than they were, because St. Louis was pretty good. And certainly the American League East, the Yankees and those guys, and Houston, they were better. And then when you look at the National League, right, the National League East is better, and so is the National League West. So I think they're the weakest division, and I think that they were the weakest champion. And I think that Minnesota is a team that, people were high on last year, and they didn't make it. This year, everybody's like, okay, well, it's Cleveland's time. Well, I don't know about that. Cleveland did a lot with a little. So the way they won was they didn't strike out. They put the ball in play. Jose Ramirez. He's an all-star MVP caliber third baseman. That's it on offense. They can't score. They can't score runs. So then it's all about their pitching. Well, I think Minnesota's got a better offense, and I think Minnesota can pitch. So can Pablo Lopez, Sonny Gray, Joe Ryan, and Tyler Mahle and Kenta Maeda match up to what Cleveland throws out there? I think they could probably compete with that. So that's where I think that Minnesota's got a pretty good chance at this.
You talked about the Angels, and I know it's Shohei, I know it's Mike Trout, but if I told you, other than obviously health, starting pitching, back end, everything that they've been lacking, offensively, they go as far as the third baseman, damn it, being healthy and finally earning a damn paycheck. Am I a little over the top when I say that?
No, not necessarily. Here's what I think when you start to look at the Angels. So let's look at their lineup, right? So the lineup looks like this. So Taylor Ward had a breakout season for them last year, and he's only 29. He's going to play well. He's going to do well again. So then you got Taylor Ward. So then you got Mike Trout, and then you got Shohei, and then you got Anthony Rendon, and then newcomer Hunter Renfroe. That's a big spot for him. And then Brandon Drury, who hit 20 home runs last year that nobody talks about. And then Jared Walsh, who's a good player for them. And then you got their big prospect kid. His name is Logan O'Hoppe. He's a catcher. He's the number one prospect in their organization. He's a hitting catcher, so I think he'll do pretty well. And then they got, Renigli, whatever, I can't say his name, Renigifo, whatever, Luis Renigifo. He used to be their leadoff hitter, but he's not anymore. So now they got a leadoff hitter batting ninth in that lineup. And then you go down and you go, what's their bullpen or their bench look like? Well, they got Max Stassi as the catcher, then David Flesher, Gino Urshela, and Brett Phillips. That's not terrible. So they got decent guys that can come out and play. And then you have, so this is where they're different. Shohei's going to be the ace, right? He's going to be the number one. But their number two is the reason why the Dodgers hung in there last year. It's Tyler Anderson. So Tyler Anderson now pitches for the Angels. And then that puts Patrick Sandoval, who's a good pitcher, in the 3 slot. And then you have Jose Suarez, Reed Detmers, and Tucker Davidson. So I think that's pretty good. Now, they don't have a bullpen worth of shit. But if they get off to a good start, they might go get somebody as a bullpen piece, or they might do whatever to make that happen. So I think you've got a good starting staff, and I think you got offense there. Rendon is important to that team. He just is. If you were gonna replace Rendon, the next guy at third base is Jake Lamb. Jake Lamb could play there. He's played there for many teams, so it's not like they don't have an inexperienced guy there. But 1 year I think he hit 25 home runs for Arizona, and then he disappeared, like he can't hit no more or something. So he's bounced around a little bit, but he's there. So I mean, they at least have some kind of security blanket for him.
Started.
Last but not least, every time I turn on MLB in the car on Sirius Radio, they keep saying, don't sleep on this team. Don't sleep on this team. And their frontline pitching is not good. They do have a horse. I will say that. Offensively, they showed flashes. They don't have much of a middle to back end, and they're in the toughest division. Oh, one of the toughest divisions. I'm talking about the Diamondbacks. And there's a lot of people around the industry that think that they're going to have a bounce back year. Now, that's not a bounce back year and challenge the Padres and the Dodgers here, but do you see them on paper to potentially be competitive?
So Circa has them at 75 wins.
Okay. That's a respectable number, by the way.
My number is 75 wins. San Francisco, I have at 82 wins, 81 wins, 500. So I don't think you can say much in talking about the Diamondbacks until they can at least be 500.
Okay.
So here's what they like, right? So they like Corbin Carroll. That's who they like. That's what they like. Corbin Carroll is the number 4 prospect in all of baseball. He's the number 1 prospect for the Diamondbacks. He's an outfielder. Um, so he projects to bat 245 with 16 home runs. Okay. He's the leadoff guy. That's who they're going to bat leadoff. Ketel Marte needs to get his ass going. This is a guy who was an all-star player. Last year he didn't do worth a crap. So you got Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, and then do you even know who Jake McCarthy is? Okay, Jake McCarthy bats 3rd on this team. Okay, so he's a 13 homer guy. I mean, come on, man. Christian Walker, you know who he is. He's one of their better players. So they got Lourdes Gurriel and from the Blue Jays in that trade. But you know what they can do is they can pitch a little. I mean, Zach Gallen is at a point where he might be able to take that step where he's one of the elite pitchers. He could. Merrill Kelly's just been a solid number 2 guy. He could be a number 1 on some teams, but and then you got Madison Bumgarner who's going to get killed. Zach Davies who's going to get killed. And then they got Ryan Nelson, who's a prospect that's going to pitch for them. So the excitement level for the Diamondbacks, I don't see it. I don't see it. You got Andrew Chafin's going to be their closer. I don't see that either. So, it's not that he's a bad pitcher, but I don't see him being the lights out closer. Then you got Mark Melancon, who's been, he's pitching since he's dead. And, I don't think he's going to go out there and be a lights out guy. He can't even throw 90 miles an hour anymore. So I look at this and I go, that's not a competitive team. It's a good team, but you know who's going to win more games than them?
The Marlins.
The Miami Marlins are going to win more games than the Diamondbacks. They will.
Think we can
that's a tough division they're in, and they're going to win more games than the Diamondbacks.
Started.
I think that's where we will start on Thursday is the breakdown of the Marlins, and then we're going to work our way back from there. Closing thoughts. I know this isn't the closing bell, but give us some closing thoughts for where you are right now in baseball, where you're looking. I know we're going to get we're hoping for some live remotes from the WBC, but we'll be doing a lot more talking as that gets even closer. But where you are right now.
Well, I am trying to fine tune and get down to where I'm going to make my season bets. I don't have to make them right now today, and I'm concerned about a couple different teams in terms of health and some other things. So certainly you could go out and you could make some wagers, but I would tell you that at this point, as I sort of look at divisions, I think you can make some pretty decent bets. Like if I go to DraftKings right now and I look at division winners. So the New York Yankees are plus 110, and the Toronto Blue Jays are plus 215. So that's pretty close. Now still double, but it's pretty close. The Astros are minus 180. So, so you start to think about these teams, right? So we talked about the Angels. The Angels are plus 850. Are they really worth a plus 850 wager? Maybe. I don't think they can go beat the Astros, but I can certainly see them beating the Mariners, and the Mariners are plus 310. So I think that those odds are not correct. I think that the Angels are better than that. Now, having said all of those things, I can't really argue with this stuff because can you sit here and tell me that the Yankees and the Blue Jays aren't going to win the East? I think they will. One of those two will. The Rays are going to be competitive, but they're not going to win it because they don't have enough offense. And then the Astros are probably going to win the West. I don't think that they won't. And then I think the Mariners and the Angels are probably the next team. But the Rangers have the same number as the Angels do, plus 850. So it's the Central that I think is messed up. So the Guardians, now remember, the Yankees were plus 110 to win their division. The Guardians are plus 135. So that's pretty good for them. The White Sox are plus 220, followed by the Twins at 245. I think you can get pretty good value on the Twins at 245. I think that that's a pretty good wager to make. So I'm looking at that and saying if you're going to take a shot value wise, that's probably where I would go because I haven't done anything in terms of season wins yet. I mean, I've got kind of an idea of what I like to do as the number one thing. Like I don't think the Dodgers have any business being a 96 season win total team. You bet under that. That's the number one sort of idea that I have. Of course, I haven't bet it yet, so I'm playing that around in my head. But how do you pick the East, right? In the National League, you got the Braves and the Mets. I think the Braves are the better team, but right now the Mets are plus 130, the Braves are plus 140. In the National League West, you got the Dodgers minus 125, the Padres plus 130. Why isn't anybody betting on the Padres? I mean, you should be betting the Padres. The Padres are the better team over the Dodgers. They are. They're the better. And I'll prove it. We can break that down if you want to. And then you got the Cardinals and the Brewers. The Cardinals are minus 120. The Brewers are plus 160. So in my mind, the way I've been looking at this, the truest, best value, I think, is the Minnesota Twins to beat the Guardians because I don't think you're asking them to do too much. And I think you're getting a good price on it. So.
Started.
All right. On Thursday, we will come back. I'm going to say 9 o'clock to be safe. I'll be back in the studio by 8:45. We'll get that cranked out for 9. We're going to go over some more teams. We'll break down some more futures. We'll talk some rules again if we have to. We'll talk some WBC. Again, our goal very simply is to get some Tuesday and Thursday shows in as we lead up till spring training games, as we get closer to the WBC, where Scott will be live. And then again, as we get closer to first pitch. So everyone, thank you so much for watching and tuning in. If you're not following me, follow me at EC Sports Invest right here. And you can obviously follow Scott at Webby20MLB. Both DMs are open. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, always ask us. We're here to educate with a little entertainment. So everyone, go enjoy your night. And myself and Scotty will see you Thursday.